Well, two of the bills are franchise tax bill, one for foreign franchise corporate franchise tax, and the other one is domestic franchise tax. And the other two, one's a oil severance tax bill and one is a coal severance tax bill. These are not consumer taxes, and we'll be taxing the large corporations and the oil and coal industry. And I just feel like it's time that we address ourselves to some taxes for Medicaid.
You say in your release that you have been getting quite a bit of mail about Medicaid. What is the trend?
Well, the trend of the mail seems to be a complete misunderstanding and frustration on the part of the people who are writing the letters. First, the majority of people, and most of these people are the sponsors of those in nursing homes, seem to think there's already been a Medicaid package that might have passed the House and failed in the Senate. But this is not the case. This package was a general fund package, never was touted as a Medicaid package. And this is one of the reasons it's failed. But I feel like if we can earmark it for Medicaid and let the people know as well as the legislature, then we can pass this measure and help solve part of the problem.
Nothing out here but a cornfield and a cotton field.
Did you ever ask any questions about this?
Yes, I asked. Well, there was a case where people down the road just wanted telephone service, and there was no facilities there to give them service. And I was asking, why is it that all this cable was laying out here, and at the same time, these people wanted service and couldn't get it? When I was evaluated, the only question was asked is, I had to write down the number of jobs that I did and they put the number outside and how much each job cost. And that was the only basis of which I was evaluated. How much money had I spent? Not the quality of how good the job was or if the job had to be redone or anything like that. Just how much money did I spent. And the more money you spend, the better engineer that you are. Everybody was trying to get as much money spent as they can. So one engineer got a job coming out of Prattville, and he got it approved by the board of directors and everything to bring cable from that direction. Another engineer got an estimate approved to come from the other direction with a cable, and both of them was being worked, and the other one came just to the other side of the bridge there.
How do you know all this?
Because I was an engineer, and this was my area of responsibility. And I wondered why was all this cable laying out here and all these thousands of dollars being spent out here, and there's nothing out here but a cornfield and a cotton field.
And do something to treat this area so that it would be available when the customers want it. Now let's talk about the engineering economy. From the economic standpoint, it's necessary for us to look into the future. We don't engineer for today, we engineer for the future. A cable like this that we bury is to last from 15 to 20 years. That's the normal breaking point where it's economical for us to do that type job. And in this case, just across the highway over here, another developer had come to us and says, listen, I bought this property over here. I'm going to build so many houses, and therefore I want to know that I can get telephone service. So he furnished us a layout, a plot plan of what he expected to build there. And from this, we started searching not only for that development, but anything else that we could seek out from any builder, from any developer out here, so that we would provide the service at the right time for that particular need. As an example, by 1989, they expect to have a demand of over 180 people out here.
Will there be a subdivision here?
Will there be? That depends upon the development people themselves and their ability to finance it. They say yes.
Do you evaluate a man on the number of jobs that he may complete and the amount of money he spends?
Certainly not. Let me state this to you this way, that as people progress in this business, we have different stages that they go through. When they first come into the engineering department, normally the training period for an assistant engineer is somewhere around 2 years, that we give them an approach to engineering. Now let's look at it from a standpoint of engineering. Engineering itself is a complex thing, especially telephone company engineering. We have a great system. It's a terrific system from a standpoint of technology. And like other things, some of the things that you're involved in your business, if we don't have matched up components that work, then the customer does not give service or get service. Therefore, engineering itself is complex.
Some of the engineers will come out and just ride down the street and just look out and say, go back to the office and take an hour and design cable without actually looking at a terrain. And this is a very good example of this. All these pedestals, we were just told that had to be replaced because when the cable was originally designed, it was designed to go back in those woods back there about 400 foot, and it turns out to be very impractical. So all that cable back there had to be abandoned.
The lay of the land here in terms of putting the cable in?
I think all the design work has been done on a flat piece of paper rather than getting out in the field and actually seeing the terrain. There's ditches and banks and things that involved. In this particular case where we had a problem here, it was a road ditch about 5 foot high. And those things have to be taken in consideration in design. Moving a few feet could eliminate a lot of cost rather than having to go through a difficult spot. Maybe there's a large tree or anything in the way, whereas it could be designed so to miss that stuff.
To be done.
Well, first let me explain this to you, that Mr. Lockett was an assistant engineer. He was not an engineer, that he was in the engineering department less than 1 year. And he was in a training most of the time that he was there. In fact, the time that he was there, he was in a training mode, responsible to build up to a particular category so that he could understand all of the development and what was needed in this. It is the engineer's responsibility, as I said previously, to go out and to look at this terrain. The engineer is responsible to stake that terrain, to actually stake it for the construction people to come in and build that line. So that comes in with engineering judgment as to what should be done and what should not be done.
I was told that at one time somebody said that they were going to build a subdivision out here, and that's how the 2 cables got out here, and there's still nothing here.
Who did you ask?
Buddy Bradshaw was my supervising engineer, and the other engineers in the office.
Do you remember the date that these questions were asked?
George, do we have 1 minute? 1 minute? One minute. 1 minute.
What apparently had deteriorated into a somewhat stormy marriage between the Wallaces took another step toward end today during a driving rainstorm.
George, do we have 1 minute? 1 minute?
When Governor Wallace finally admitted the existence of the tapes, he said that they had been destroyed. But our sources tell us that either Mrs. Wallace had copies made or she took some tapes that no one inside the mansion knew existed before they were ever discovered, and they have been spirited away, apparently in Florida in a locker, and only she knows where they are. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the Governor's Mansion.
Everybody says, and the senators and the people in the legislature who've been against it said, well, they're not going to do any good anyhow. Well, if they felt like this, it wasn't going to do any good, why are they so adamant about passing them? Why are we having so much trouble getting them passed? It seems if they're not going to do any good, they ought to go ahead and pass them. Let's see if they'll do any good.
One thing that comes to mind, this bill, this package and some others seem to be going above or beyond the Public Service Commission. Is that because they've not proven to be effective?
Clark, the problem with the Public Service Commission is that when they were created by the legislature, they were vested with the same authority that the legislature had. They are an arm of the legislature. But year by year, they have lost the authority that they were originally given. For instance, they just gave away by an act of the Public Service Commission the right to set fuel cost and established what is now known as the Fuel Adjustment Clause. They did that. Back in 1971, the legislature took away part of their rights when they built in the future construction cost by an amendment to a bill that was not understood by anybody in the legislature. A member of the legislature, the member of the legislature who sponsored that bill, Bob Eggington from Mobile, has since come back and said that he was misled, that it had been misrepresented to him. He did not understand what the amendment did, that it was a terrible mistake, and he has personally asked every member of the legislature to repeal that amendment. We've tried to repeal it, and obviously the power company has been able to thwart every effort that we've made.
Now, to $42 a week is what they would draw under the unemployment compensation approach. Everyone feels that these people could be a great benefit, everyone I've talked to, that it would be a benefit to the school systems to have these people work in their off months, in the summer months. We feel that it would reduce vandalism significantly, and this has become a big cost item now in many schools, just the vandalism aspect of it. The cost to go with unemployment from the best estimates I could get, would be almost $13 million a year, $12,800,000 to pay all of these people unemployment compensation. Assuming that the entire group elected to work the summer months, the cost would be approximately $17 million. Now, this is assuming that they all elect to work. What we would do would be to allow these support persons to choose if they wanted the summer work or if they did not want.
To carry us through the next 2 months that will not cut back any nursing home time in the state of Alabama that we made this. That when we got into Medicaid, we made sure exactly in the past 3 years pays the other part. There's one thing I want you to remember though.
We've been confused long enough, and I think the truth should be revealed about this program. That way we might solve some problems.
And you're involved because you are hoping to introduce a package of bills dealing with Medicaid, is that correct?
The bills will have to be introduced in the House, and we already have some sponsors in the House, and I would certainly hope to carry on the work as far as getting the bills earmarked for Medicaid in the Senate.
In a nutshell, what would these bills deal with?
Well, it's 4 bills. 2 of them deals with oil severance tax and coal severance tax. The other 2 are foreign franchise corporate tax and domestic franchise corporate tax.
We started out with the cost of Medicaid to the taxpayers 7 years ago at about the state outside of education to run every. In the past 3 years that you and I
would be enough to fund Medicaid.
We're going to have a Medicaid program from now on. You heard me say that I am not, that I'm never old. We started out with the cost of Medicaid to the taxpayers 7 years ago at about $10 million.
And I would like to ask, first of all, that you disregard any preconceived notions you may have regarding the Ku Klux Klan. Over the years, we've been subjected to a great deal of abuse, almost all of which was undeserved. First of all, the first point I'd like to make is that we are a legal organization. In order to become a member of the KKK, one must take an oath that he will not conspire with any other member to commit any illegal act. So, as such, we feel that we are entitled to the constitutional rights, to our constitutional rights as any other organization, legitimate organization. The second point I'd like to make is that although we are a racially oriented organization, that is, our openly stated purpose is to provide a voice for the white majority in this country, that would simply classify us with any number of other organizations which I could name, which are openly representing racial minorities.
Give me about 30 seconds.
Okay, Bob.
Give me about 30 seconds.
Okay.
It would return the telephone rates for business customers to the level that they were prior to last Friday's rate reduction. It would also return long-distance rates to the level that they've been since January of 1976. But it would freeze the residential telephone rates at the reduced level that's presently being charged.
Have you gotten any input from telephone company officials on this?
They have indicated to me that they would not appeal the compromise decision, that they're not entirely satisfied with it, but that they feel they could probably live with it.
What about you?
I've not made any firm decision yet. I want to study the compromise. I'm very pleased that it would give some relief to the household consumers, and there would be no increase at all in the telephone bills to the average citizen. But I'm worried about such things as the small businesses, and I want to see if there might be some alternatives that could give some further relief.
In other business before the PSC, Commissioner Ziegler read a letter from Lieutenant Governor Jerry Beasley to the rest of the commissioners demanding an immediate order decreasing Alabama Power Company's consumer electric rates. The failure of such an action, said Beasley, would suggest a strong case for the complete abolishment of the PSC. Ziegler also read his reply to the Lieutenant Governor's letter. In that letter, Ziegler pointed out that there are certain procedures to be followed before such an action can take place. And in conclusion, Ziegler suggested, quoting, "If you are really sincere in wanting to do something about electric rates, I suggest you consider running for the Public Service Commission next year. As a member of the Public Service Commission, you would be able to support my proposals to give relief to the household consumers. Also, you would have a better chance of winning a race for Public Service Commission than you would a race for governor." End quote. Bill Weaver, WSFA TV News, at the State Office Building in Montgomery.